So, hello everyone, and welcome to our monthly webinar, our OSCE webinar, which is part of the outreach program. So if it's the first time you're joining us, we thank you a lot for your interest in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. So this is actually the second webinar already that we are doing on our very famous JPO program, which is one of the flagships of the organization. And we hope that you will learn a lot today about the OSCE and this very famous program. If you are listening us live, so some of you are listening us live, but there will also be others who will watch and listen to the recording at a later stage. We had more than 400 registration, which is a lot, and more than 20 candidates from 20 participating states who are listening to us. Let me give you a couple of instructions how we are going to proceed. Exactly, there. Thank you so much. So we will spend in total 60 minutes together, and we will show you more information about the Junior Profession Officer program and how the program impacted the career journey of some of our current or former JPOs. So we will use the WebEx technology, so I suppose you are familiar with this. All attendees needs to be on mute for the duration of the presentation. However, you are able to use the chat box that you already used. So in case you have questions, mainly at the end, please drop us a line. So we booked at least 10 minutes for the question and answer session at the end. Okay, let me also introduce myself. So my name is Yannick Kimpel and I'm the JPO coordinator. So I took over this very interesting and important role 2 years ago. And I particularly like my job to work with young professionals to support our talent pipeline and also to see success stories. Yeah, so the JPO program is, let's say, our entry-level program here in the OSCE, and we had in the past 14 years more than 149 JPOs from 53 out of the 57 participating states in 20 rounds. And now we are going to start very soon with the 23rd round that will be published in the next 2 weeks. Exactly. We are also going to listen, obviously, to our current JPOs who will speak to you. And all of them are going to introduce themselves quickly. Please go ahead on my right.
So, hello, my name is Marv Barbelushi. As you can see from the slide, I am from Albania. Before joining the JPO program, I finished my master's studies in the Netherlands, in Leiden University for European Law with an LLM. And then afterwards, I had a brief work experience working in Brussels, where I worked for the European EU institutions and also for a think tank dealing with Southeastern European affairs, and even for a short time with a private company. Afterwards, I got a scholarship and I studied at the College of Europe for International Relations and Diplomacy. And afterwards, I went back to my home country and I worked for 1 year in the Ministry specifically of Tourism and Environment. I took the opportunity for JPO because I was really interested into the international civil service, and I was also really interested into gaining and learning how the OSCE works. And I'm quite happy I applied for it, and after applying, I got accepted, and now I work at the second dimension on economic and environmental affairs. So I will leave my other colleagues to speak more.
Yes, and later on you will have also a bit more time to spend on your past experience and academic background, but please continue to introduce yourself briefly.
Hello, dear participants. My name is Olga, and I'm both from Portugal and Russia. I have started my JPO program in September, and currently I'm working at the Office of Internal Oversight at the evaluation section.
We have also a former JPO with us, also a very successful one.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to have you here. My name is Amina Jamanaeva. I'm from Kazakhstan originally. I was participated at the JPO program last year. Currently, I'm working for the OSCE as a short-term assistant at the Office of Coordinator of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activities.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's really good.
And last but not least,
hello, my name is Daniel Anderson. Good to be here. I hold double citizenship, Danish and Luxembourgish, and I started the JPO program in September. And I am placed in the Office of the Special Representative for Combating Trafficking in Human Beings, where right now I work on a project on preventing trafficking in supply chains of governments.
very good. So we have by accident here junior profession officers with 2 nationalities, which is obviously not mandatory in order to join the program. Let us have a look on the agenda and what we are covering today. So first of all, we present you with a brief overview of the JPO program, so you can understand a bit better how we conceptualize the program and also its purpose. Then later on, you're going to meet these JPOs that just introduced themselves, so the current and also one former JPO, and they will talk about their backgrounds and interest, and also why they consider the OSCE as an employer of choice. And then finally, we are going to talk what you should expect of the program, including also the different types of experience. So we are covering how is the life in Vienna, how does the daily job look like, what kind of recommendation would the JPOs give to you as a potential candidate, and also what kind of lessons learned they did during the JPO program. At the end, we are also going to provide you with some application tips, obviously. Okay, so if you, I think it's not the first time that you join us for the webinars. We have a very good video every time on the OSCE in the different official language, so you can have a better understanding of the OSCE, of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. We are not going to play it here, but please have a look on our LinkedIn page and also on osce.org in order to learn more about the organization. Let's talk a bit more about eligibility criteria. So we have 57 participating states in North America, Europe, and Asia. And the OSCE is the world's largest regional security organization. The organization stands for stability, peace, democracy for more than 1 billion people, mainly through political dialogue, shared values, but also practical work that aims to make a lasting impact. So if you see your flag here, that means that you're obviously eligible for the JPO program. So all the candidates that are nationals of OSCE participating states can apply. You also need to be below 30 at the deadline of the application. And you need to have first level degree, meaning either a bachelor degree or a master degree. Sometimes I receive questions on practical work experience. So this is more considered as an asset. It's not mandatory. Please also bear in mind that summer workshops, maybe some work at the university, that also counts as experience, but it's only an asset. So it's really not mandatory. And the last requirement I would like to mention is also the professional fluency in English, both in oral and written. So that are the eligibility criteria, but you're also going to find it in the vacancy notice that will be published later on. Now let's talk a bit more about the different locations where also our jobs and the JPOs are located. So you might know that we have more than 3,500 people that work for the OSCE in 5 different institutions. Institutions here, the Secretariat, but also freedom of the media. We have HCNM in The Hague and also ODIHR that work on different issues. And we have, of course, our 16 field operations. So regarding the JPO program, 13 out of the 16 field operations are in the position to host JPOs. So that is, I think, very interesting. The work of the OSCE spans the globe, so it encompasses different continents: North America, Europe, Asia. I mentioned already the 16 field operations where our JPOs can be deployed either to Southeastern Europe, Eastern Europe, South Caucasus, or Central Asia. I like a lot showing every time this 3 because it shows the different fields of expertise. And this 3 is also linked to our so-called 3 dimensions. We have, first of all, the politico-military dimension that you can see in red, for example, arms control, conflict prevention, but you also have the reform and cooperation in the security sector and transnational threats. So in these different fields, we also offer JPO placement, either here in the Secretariat or in the field operation. You have also the second dimension, where Amina is currently working on, so in the environment and economical field. So this is more, let's say, in this graph in green, so where you have economic activities. You have also good governments, where we also have openings for the JPO program, and you have environmental activities, where we'll have this year even 2 openings. And last but not least, we have the third dimension, which is the human dimension, which covers the fields of expertise that are in blue, so such as freedom of the media, but also national minorities, elections, education, combating human trafficking, where we have 2 openings this year, but also Sinti and Roma, gender, where we have an opening, tolerance and non-discrimination, rule of law and human rights. So just to give you a bit an overview of the different fields of expertise, because this is directly linked to our openings, where we offer either here in the Secretariat or later in the field operations. This might also be linked to your studies. You might have studied something similar like that, but we also offer, obviously, JPO placements more in the corporate service. So if you have a finance background, the OSCE might be a good choice for you if you have experience in IT, in audit, or in general oversight, like Olga is working, or in legal, HR, obviously. We have opening in this field, and I'm going to refer to the vacancy notice that will be published in the next 2 weeks, where you have an overview of all the openings and further informations. Okay, let's go to the next slide, where we are actually answering a question that I receive on a very regular basis, because the OSCE has 2 rounds now, 2 rounds of selection for the Junior Professional Officer program, and both of them are in September. So meaning everyone can apply. There's obviously a UB, a unified budget, where we have a couple of spaces where all candidates from all the participating states can apply. And there is also, at the same time, a spot for sponsored JPOs that are sponsored directly via the participating states. So what you need to do is, in order to know if your participating state is seconding you, you need to contact your OSCE delegation. But I'm going to provide you more information on this later on. So in any case, you are going to apply via the OSCE website once the call for application is published. And your delegation will then forward us your application. So it's not possible to apply directly to us, meaning by an offline application, or you send me an offline application. You need to be nominated by your seconding authorities. And in order to do this, you need to get in contact with them. So it's good to send an email to them. If you type osce.org/contact/delegation, you have all the contact details, and you can reach out to them and ask if they are going to nominate this year for your participating state. So that's the course of action that you need to take, let's say. So there are 2 rounds, but you should not be worried with this, because both are open at the same time. Previously, we had every time 2 rounds, but we discovered it's better to have only one group of JPO in terms of team spirit, obviously. So there will be one round, but it does not affect you. It's like in the past. And now we are going to speak to a very successful former JPO who participated in last year's webinar, and he is going to talk a bit more about his success story and what happened after the JPO program with him. Are you able to? We are going to unmute our friend Jan, who is currently in SMM, and now he should be able to hear us, and also he should be able to speak. Welcome, Jan. How are you doing?
Hello, Yannick. I'm doing fine. Thank you. So, can you hear me loud and clear?
The quality is very good. So
Okay.
tell us about a bit more about your career at the OSCE.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Jan, and together with Amina, I was part of the last year JPO round. A little bit from my background, I'm from Slovakia. I did my bachelor degree in Slovakia in political science and my master degree in Denmark in international relations, European studies. Prior to working as a JPO, I did a couple of internships in the European Parliament, where I worked with the Slovak MEPs in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and also for a senior political advisor in the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Human Rights. I also briefly worked as an event coordinator for an NGO in Denmark. And in September of 2018, I started to work as a JPO. I worked in the Secretariat for 6 months in the office of the Secretary General, where I worked for 3 months on the strategic planning and resource mobilization, and also in the Department of Countering Trafficking and Human Beings, where I was able to work on the preparations of the Alliance Conference, which is one of the largest anti-trafficking conferences hosted by the OSCE, and also in various different project proposals. But I believe that Daniel, current JPO, will be able to brief you better on CTHB issues. I would also like to say that during my stay in the Secretariat, I started to learn Russian language. Back then, I didn't know that I will be assigned to the special monitoring mission in Ukraine, but the Secretariat offers a lot of different learning and development opportunities. So I signed up for this one, and it was actually a very good move because I ended up doing my second half of my JPO program in Ukraine. So I joined the special monitoring mission in Kiev, in its headquarters in Kiev, in March last year, where I started to work in the reporting and political analysis unit. Basically, this unit is responsible for compiling the mission's final product, which are the daily, weekly, and permanent council reports, and also spot reports and thematic reports. So I had to gather inputs from various different departments of the mission and put it all together for the final product. It was a very interesting period of my time because the job was quite challenging, but also very rewarding. I really enhanced my drafting skills and was able to work with amazing people who since day one were really helpful and fully integrated me into the unit. So I was supposed to stay there till September of the last year, as expected. 6 months in the Secretariat, 6 months in the mission. But then I got offered a short-term contract because at the time there was the need to help the department a little bit more. Some people left, etc. So initially I was offered to stay for 2 months. Then I got extended for another 2 months. And in the meantime, I applied for a job opening there, which was in the Technical Monitoring Center. As I mentioned previously, in my position as a reporting officer, I had to compile different inputs from different departments of the mission, and this is one of them, which is responsible for monitoring of ceasefire violations along the line of contact. It's a 24/7 remote monitoring through cameras, thermal imagery, night vision, stuff like that. I was successful. I went through the whole application process and got chosen for the job.
Great. That's a very good example. That's a very good example of a success story. So we have had a question in the chat box. Obviously, the Russian language is an asset, but we have a couple of JPOs in our current round that speak Russian, but obviously not everyone. So it's not mandatory, obviously, to speak Russian, but for some field operations, it might be needed. So just to answer this question, you understood that our JPO program is unique because we offer placements both at the headquarters in the Secretariat, but also in the field operation, and that makes this program unique. And I also would like to show you another success story. So someone, can you just mute Jan? And someone who is not with us today, but as successful as all the other JPOs, who is Niev. So she graduated with a master's degree from the National University in Ireland, and in the field of international human rights law. She has a double nationality, Irish and US, and she worked during her secretarial placement in the Office of the Secretary General in the Conference and Language Service. And this department is one of our most important department, and it offers very interesting opportunities because Niev was the focal point for the OSCE delegation and the chairmanship, and she provided direct support for high-level meetings such as the Permanent Council and other very high-level meetings. During her field operation placement, she was assigned to the OSCE mission to Bosnia and Herzegovina, a well-established mission that hosted already lots of very successful JPOs, and she was working mainly in the human rights section where she promoted human rights and upheld international norms and standards through advocacy and awareness-raising campaigns. So she diversified a lot her profiles and also her possible career path, and she's now working on a fixed-term position in Bosnia, where she monitors systematic human rights concerns, especially in the area of discrimination, fundamental rights, but also in the fields of economics and social rights. So she is another success story of a JPO who got a fixed-term position after the JPO program. So yeah, just to mention this, and both JPOs were present here last year during the JPO webinar that is still available. I would like to cover very quickly the recruitment process because we also want to speak to our JPOs a bit more later on. So you can see here on this slide the typical steps that the recruitment process of the junior professional officers involve. Yeah? Please also note that the item that you can see there in orange is the nomination. Yeah? So for both rounds, your participating state needs to nominate you. So nomination means that the person needs to, let's say, accept you and validate your application before the application reaches us here in the Secretariat. So that's very important. And regarding this, I mentioned that you need to contact your participating states via the contact address. So that's the best course of action because I cannot intervene in this. So we later then receive your application and we are going to screen it. So we are going to review all the application. In general, we receive, let's say, 400 or 500 applications from different participating states, and we will establish a long list, how we call it in recruitment. So we are going to assess whether you meet the technical terms that I just mentioned. So if you are part of the OSCE participating states, if you have fluency in English, and if you are below 30 also, and if you have the university degree. So that is part of the long listing, and then a smaller number of people will be invited for a written test, and also a video interview. So if you followed our other webinars, there is more information, for example, on Sonru interviews. So this is a digital interview where potential candidates can record interview questions easily on a Sunday afternoon. So that's highly appreciated by our candidates because it's very flexible. So there are recorded interviews. I would like to refer to the webinar on Sonru and pre-recorded interviews that in case you would like to know more about Sonru, I would highly recommend to review this. So there is this written assessment and the digital interview that is part of the shortlisting interview. And there will also be a validation interview at the end directly with the hiring department. So that's, let's say, is the recruitment process. So you need to be nominated by your participating states. It's very easy. You just can type OSCE delegations in Google contact, and you will find the email addresses how to contact them. And then there's this written assessment with the Sonru test, and finally an evaluation interview that will take place. So that's about the recruitment process. Let's look a bit more about how I would call it, benefits or advantages. So the JPO program is unique because it offers you as young professionals the opportunity to experience both at the headquarters but also in the field operations relevant experience. And there is a living allowance, so the so-called stipend, which is approximately 1,000 euros per month, 1,250 euros for the Secretariat and 1,000 euros for the field operation placement. So there's also included health insurance, so you don't need to worry on this. So this is directly paid for you. And you should also not worry about potential visa questions. So that will be done at a very late stage with the selected candidate. So you don't need to take any action at this time. Let me just mention a couple of other advantages that are not mentioned here. All the selected JPOs, they will take part in the general orientation program, which is kind of induction program. There are also some weekly briefings that are organized for the JPOs. Maybe someone of you, can you explain us a bit more about the weekly briefings? For example, Olga, you attended most of the briefings. What kind of type of briefings can the future JPOs expect?
So our briefings are mainly aimed to extend some of our capabilities. They are work-related. Also, they are enhancing our program management skills, also the public speaking. As well, we were able to present, to perform a little presentation about our own departments, as for example, Marv did. Also, we had some couple of briefings how to prepare for the interview, and some tips how to write a cover letter. And
so just to give you a few impression, what kind of development opportunities this program also offers to you as potential junior professional officer. So you understood that it's a one-year program. So participants will spend the first 6 months at the OSCE Secretariat at the headquarters, working in one of the departments with a specific portfolio that matches your skills and area of interest and also the needs of the organization. And then later on, you will be placed in one of our field operations. So we are going to take, obviously, for the field operation placement into consideration your interest and preference. So you will have the future JPOs will have the opportunity to state the 3 priorities. They have 3 preferred field operations, and there will be a matching exercise. But our current JPOs are talking a bit more about this later. So at this stage, you don't need to worry about the field operation placement because you need to arrive first here in the Secretariat, and after the between the second and the third month, you can state your preference for the field operation placement, and you will know it after the third month. So just to inform you, because your choice might change, which happens most of the time, that once a junior professional arrives and in the first 2 months, he or she realizes that she has also an interest in a different field. So how I see the JPO program is more that you get a generalist, so that you can work in different fields of expertise. So meaning you work maybe in the field of gender here in the Secretariat, but you work in combating human trafficking in the field operations. So that's how we see the program, that you get an OSCE generalist, where Amina is the best example. She's going to explain us more later why she is the best example for this after having worked in all the 3 dimensions. And JPOs are also requested to be open-minded and flexible to be assigned to any OSCE duty station, taking into consideration also your preference and organizational needs. Let me also refer, we received a couple of questions on the secondment process, and obviously I'm not going into detail during the JPO webinar, but I would like to refer to another webinar where the secondment process is explained into detail how this works. So I would strongly recommend you to watch the webinar on the secondment process, where most of your questions will be answered. Because the JPO program, let me confirm and clarify once more, is a seconded position. So for both rounds, your participating state needs to nominate you in order that your application reaches us. Yeah, so this is also part of one of our webinars, where it's explained a bit better how candidates are selected. So obviously it depends on your competencies and expertise. There's also the element of language skills. So for some of the field operation, Russian language skills might be needed. Just to name a few elements on this slide. And finally, in terms of preparation, that's a question that we receive quite often. So there is another webinar on how to prepare for competency-based interviews, but let me explain a few elements. So first of all, it's very important to identify the competencies based on the terms of reference. So terms of reference is the job description that for all JPO openings will be published. So read through the different tasks and responsibilities and identify the competencies and skills that are needed for this position. In case you are invited for a pre-recorded Sondrio interview, it's very important to think and to prepare specific examples for these competencies. Maybe for one of the positions, event management is very important. So it would be good to have an example for event management or project management. On the other hand side, it's also good to prepare an open statement. What is your motivation? Why are you interested in applying for the OSCE, the so-called elevator pitch? So that's something that you can practice at home and use the time wisely and use all the resources that are on our OSCE website. So the webinars prove to be a strong element in terms of preparation for our candidates. And now let's go a bit more to the lively parts where our junior professional officers are going to share more about their experience here. So you can see on the picture our 16 JPOs. Let's say 11 of them are currently in the field, and we have 4 of them, 3 of them who are in the room with us, who are going to be deployed in early March, and they are going to talk about their stories, and I'm already looking forward to this.
Yes, so hello again. I'm Daniel, as you can see. I work currently in the trafficking office, Office for Countering Trafficking in Human Beings. And before coming to the OSCE from a current position, my academic background is that I have a master in European governance, which is a double degree from between the University of Utrecht in the Netherlands and Dublin in Ireland. And previously also a bachelor in political science from Free University Berlin. Okay. And I've done several traineeships and internships previous to that in the European Commission and in the German Bundestag. And what you see here, Roskilde University, I did a summer school in project management, which has come in very handy because I'm right now working on a project on combating human trafficking in supply chains of public procurement. And this project has just been extended to June 2020, so I'm doing a lot of background research and analysis in this area, which I find very fascinating.
Did you already mention where you're going to the field?
Yes, so I'm going to the field to the special monitoring mission in Ukraine, where I will start my placement from beginning of March and half a year.
In the field of environment, so you're changing from combating human trafficking to environment, where you will develop a OSCE general profile, which is a door opener for your future career to work also in other fields of expertise.
Yes, I find it very great to have this opportunity to extend my portfolio like that. And as you say, it opens up further doors for career advancement.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olga. I'm both Russian and Portuguese, as I already mentioned before. Currently, I work at the Office of Internal Oversight here at the OSCE as the evaluation function. We oversee all the activities of the OSCE field operations and institutions, provide guidance, advices, and also investigate sometimes specific cases. I will be deployed on 1st of March at the Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine at the Reporting and Political Analysis Unit. I didn't change my area of expertise because I already have a long history of being with the OSCE, and I have decided that this will actually deepen my skills, which I think for me are more important, which is analytical thinking, analyzing of complex financial and narrative data, and also report writing. So I have a background in international relations and European studies from St. Petersburg State University. I also have studied in the Rovaniemi University of Applied Science on the Arctic Circle. I have possessed already working experience at the local government at St. Petersburg External Relations Committee, also at the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly Vienna Liaison Office, where I first got familiar with the OSCE organizations and how to work here in Vienna. Afterwards, I changed to the UN system, and I have worked at the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, so we can call it the first dimension. Afterwards, I got an internship in OSCE program office in Bishkek, where I had amazing time working in the human dimension, so third dimension. And afterwards, I got this position of the JPO, which I'm very excited because I had previously, when I just get to Vienna, I had amazing role models of my colleagues who got this position before, and now they have an amazing jobs. So I'm happy.
So Olga entered through her Portuguese nationality. She has also the Russian nationality. Let me also remind you that work experience is not mandatory for the JPO placement. So some JPOs are more experienced, others are a bit more junior. So in our round of 17 JPOs that we have this year, we have different skill sets and a different range of ages. So let's go to our next JPO. Marv already introduced himself,
Yes.
but remind us once more about the key elements.
So yeah, I introduced myself already. I would like to emphasize now I work at the Office of the Coordinator of Economic and Environmental Activities. That's on the second dimension of the OSCE, so which deals with the economic and environmental aspects of security. And more specifically, I work with the ECU, which is the Environmental Cooperational Unit. So I deal mostly with the environmental aspects of security. I would like to emphasize also that I will shortly I will be moving to Dushanbe, which is the capital of Tajikistan, to our field operation there, where I will continue my work within the second dimension. So I think mine is kind of, I'm not sure how many other JPOs had to work on the same dimension, but I think it's quite a good thing because I've learned quite a lot during this time in the Secretariat on this dimension, and I look forward to continue enhancing my expertise in this area. So I also saw a question which I think is quite interesting. Do you need an engineering, could you apply with an engineering degree? I think especially on our dimension, it's quite important, especially to have staff which are, let's say, specialized on environmental engineering or science degrees. So you are, in any way, in this dimension, you are quite welcomed to apply, especially if you would like the technical side of working in projects dealing with this dimension. So
you will see it later in the vacancy notice once it's published, because you will have the opportunity to state your 3 priorities based on the terms of reference that are published. So if you have a background or interest in the environmental function, I would highly recommend you to state one of the environmental openings in one of your preferences. So that's a very interesting section. And again, what kind of backgrounds are we looking for? I would refer you again to this 3 that I showed at the beginning, where you see the different fields of expertise, because they are linked to our openings. And in addition to this, we have again these corporate service openings like HR, human resources, internal audit, IT, procurement, finance. Yeah. And we have a former JPO, Amina, with us. Welcome.
Hello again. As I've mentioned already, I'm a former JPO. I've participated in the previous rounds. Currently, I'm a short-term assistant with the same department where Marv works, Office of the Coordinator for Economic and Environmental Activities. Before joining OSCE, I had a couple of internships, unpaid, paid, in my home country and in Europe as well. I joined OSCE in the position of intern first. I joined HR and I've helped them with the research on the diversity in HR practices. I had a very interesting assignment there. And then afterwards, I get a short-term assistance. And after the short-term assistant at the Combating Human Trafficking Department, which is more linked to my background, because I studied human rights. I have my master in human rights in Vienna. And I got the GPO position when I applied. It was interesting because I switched to another dimension, which is the first, because I joined the TNTD, Transnational Threats Prevention Department, and Strategic Police Matters Unit. And my second part of the program I spent in Sarajevo in a human dimension at the rule of law, also mostly dealing with the combating human trafficking cases. So as Yannick mentioned, I have this handful experience with this all 3 dimensions, because what are those? The OSCE is dealing with the first dimension is the politically military dimension, second is the economic and environment dimension, and third is the human dimension. That's what we are mentioning a lot. But of course, I realized that a lot of work that we do is actually cross-dimensional. This all issues are so interlinked. For example, whenever I went to the TNTD and dealing with the police matters unit, we had still a project, for example, on trafficking. So it was very interconnected. Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Amina. Let us talk a bit about your OSCE Secretariat experience in Vienna. So two of our JPOs here in the room will provide us with more information how they experienced living in Vienna.
Well, I can start. I think Vienna, first of all, is quite an interesting and also for expats also city. So you don't need only German, but you can also go along quite well with English. It has a lot of activities, so you don't have only work. You can have a very good work-life balance, so to say. As after work, you can go to these different cultural places like museums, events, youth events, and in addition, it's also quite connected. I think, which I really liked. It's quite connected to other cities in Europe. So in the weekend, you can plan ahead to visit different cities. So in general, I think apart from work, it's quite a nice place to live, especially if you get settled quite fast when you arrive. So I think that's quite good for you also to prepare for this.
Maybe someone else? How about Olga?
Well, I have already lived in Vienna for like 2 years, and I for sure can say that that's the most comfortable and livable city in the world. It's very safe. Public transport is amazing, amazingly developed. People are actually nice. And it also, I agree with Marv, the international community there and community of expats is very strong. You can always meet the people from UN, interesting people from other organizations, come with them to the events and for a nice hike. It's very nice.
Okay, then let's have a closer look on your daily job. And how about Amina? So you already mentioned that you have experience in all the 3 dimensions. How does your current job look like after the end of the JPO program?
So I'm working with the 2 extra budgetary programs, very interesting projects. I would like to highlight that you get exposed a lot to a lot of professional experts, and you can learn a lot or whenever you also have initiative to learn. So whenever you are proactive regarding to your activities, it also depends because you also, as a GPO, you can shape your own experience. It also helps to develop your new skills, soft skills as well, as you can learn a lot regarding the time management, stress management. You can improve your communication skills, the diplomatic skills, which suits overall any work that you would like to pursue.
So if I can, because I work with Amina on the same office, we mostly deal with project management and events that we organize.
Yeah.
I think the field is quite interesting. Some people might not link it directly with security, but I think it has quite an important impact. And we deal basically from the beginning. So we start from the concept note of the activity or the project until the final stages, which involves usually in the end also a duty trip to see from close by the effects of this project. In addition, we've had also conferences. We have worked in drafting the talking points on these conferences. And it's quite challenging. It's quite you have to really organize your time quite well. But I think the colleagues in the end, they really make it better. They help us during this phase. And I think this is what they do also with JPOs. They try to give them a good introduction to the field.
What you mentioned is very interesting. So there is a difference between an internship and a junior professional officer program in terms of responsibilities. So that's very clear. We have interns and JPOs here, and they do different work. So as for JPOs, we can expect that they contribute to draft policy documents and other things. So there is a difference between these 2 staffing categories.
I just would like also to add that as a JPO, you can already go to the duty travel.
Exactly. So most of our JPOs had the opportunity to do duty travels and to attend different, either organize and attend different types of conferences. That's actually a very good question. So what do you wish someone had told you before joining the OSCE?
Yes,
Daniel?
Speaking from a personal perspective, I think it's important also to mention that people should be prepared to dive in to a completely new topic and learn it from scratch, which in the beginning can seem a bit challenging and overwhelming, but it's a really enriching experience. And I've been very thankful for it, and also for instance, applying my skills in project management. Whereas it has been mentioned previously that event management is also an important component of what the staff is doing at the OSCE. I helped, for instance, prepare a high-level conference in The Hague with representatives from ministries and delegations doing all the substantial preparatory work, for instance, drafting the program and invitation, preparing the concept note and speaker bios as well. And this also gave me the opportunity to take care of the external communication with stakeholders, for instance, drafting press releases following the events and also responding to inquiries from journalists.
Okay, how about the next slide? Where are you going next? So Amina is here in the Secretariat after the placement, but where are you going next and what do you expect for your field operations placement? And how was this arranged? So you were able to state preferences, I understand. How this where your preference met with your final placement?
Yeah, as far as I remember the process, we had 3 preferences to indicate, including the area where you want to work. So that's quite a good thing. So if you do not feel yourself very comfortable or you are very curious about different areas of work of the OSCE, I think you can indicate this in the preference and perhaps you might be allocated in that area. And what you can choose is the field operations. So the OSCE has field operations in 3 regions in 3 so-called areas, which are Southeastern Europe, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia. And what I did, I indicated my geographical preferences, my field of work preference, and in the end, I'm quite happy with the choice that I will be going to a region which I've never been before, and I really would love to explore. So in general, I think what the JPO program does quite a good thing is that I've seen the experience in the Secretariat, how the work is done here. And I really am enthusiastic to learn also about how the work is done actually in our field operation. So, and on the ground, on the terrain. So that would be what I could.
Do you want to add something, Olga? So you're going into the special monitoring mission to Ukraine?
Yes, that's correct. And that's actually was my first priority, since I already have the experience in Central Asia and some experience in the Southeast Europe. I have decided that I should apply my Russian speaking skills as well as analytical skills into the one of the most challenging missions of the OSCE, and I got this position. I think it was perfect match for my qualifications, and that's why I got it. So that's why I'm happy.
Very good. Let's now focus a bit more on your lessons learned. So what did you learn during the JPO placement so far?
I would say be proactive. Be proactive, manage your time quite well. So not only focus on your work, but also manage it in such a way that you participate to all the briefings, to all the extra activities that are surrounding Vienna, which are perhaps also related to the work. And I think I would also like to say that I coming also from Albania. We have also the chairmanship this year, so it was quite interesting to see how Albania is tackling with this new challenge in their foreign policy, and also to see to meet the people up close, to meet my delegation, and to understand how the work differs from an international civil service perspective, from that to a national perspective. But I will leave my other colleagues.
To network probably can be the advice, because you get to know a lot of very interesting professionals in their fields, and it's a great opportunity. It also to leave your comfort zone, because people you would be happier if you would be more exposed to the challenging assignments.
Challenge yourself.
Challenge yourself, you can say so. And practice. Try to participate as in many things as possible. There is a lot of sports clubs. There is a lot of different kinds of trainings that you can join. There's a lot of events, conferences that going on. So you have to be just open to all of this in order to get the most.
I would also like to add that I find it very interesting to learn more about OSCE's comprehensive approach to security, which I also think will be very enriching for my future career, and also how many different aspects it encompasses. For instance, human rights in the form of anti-trafficking or sustainable development in form of economic and environmental oversight. And I'm also looking very forward to obtaining direct hands-on experience in the field and thereby also extending my skill set.
Very good. We have one last slide, so one last topic to discuss. So what was the impact of the JPO program on your career journey? Maybe someone wants to share an element. Mark,
okay, I will start again because I'm feeling also in a mood to explain how it has. What was the impact? I think it's quite important. I worked on the national capacity, and I really needed project management skills and really also event planning skills. And in this way, OSCE gave me quite a good introduction on the importance of keeping the timelines, but also the steps to follow when dealing with either projects or events. In general, it also gave me a very good introduction to working in a multicultural environment with people from very different backgrounds and working also in harmony with them. So I think this was quite a good impact. And now, of course, I look forward for my field placement, which will be quite an I really hope that I will also get to learn as much as possible also in this next 6 months.
Okay, very good. So we had a couple of questions on our webinar outreach program. So here you can see again the link, how to find our webinars. So in case you are interested to hear more about how the contact with the delegation works, I would recommend you to have a look on the webinar on the secondment process. If you have questions how to prepare the interview, there's also a special interview, a special webinar on this, how to prepare for competency-based interview. So that's a very useful resource, I think, for you. That's our jobs.osce.org. So you are going to apply through our internet site. I got a few questions. Let me confirm that your application needs indeed to be validated by your delegation or by your participating state. So you are going to apply through our internet site, and they will redirect you to the internet site of the National Competent Authority, and they validate, or also known as nominate, you for the program. So before we start with the question and answer session, I had also a question on the written assessment. So there is a written test. It's more open-ended questions that change every year. And now I would like to invite you to drop your questions in the chat box. If there's anything that was not clear, or if you have additional questions, we are happy to answer your questions. So we have, let's say, around 5 minutes left. Let us have a look at the first question. Is the one-year JPO program equivalent to a one-year working experience? The answer is very easy, yes, obviously. So the JPO program counts as work experience, and it's a very relevant work experience, not only if you want to get a job here in the OSCE afterwards, also for other international organizations, for think tanks, in general for the public sector. That I had. What other questions do we have? Let's have a look. How long is the selection process? So let me let me explain you once more. So the vacancy notice will be published next week, and the start date of the JPO placement is in September. So the selected candidate will be notified 2 to 3 months prior to the start of the JPO program. So the selection process can take a bit because we have lots of openings. I think I already explained now several times that your application needs to be validated, what we call nomination, and I referred to the webinar on the secondment process. So your delegation is supposed to answer you and to get back to you if they are going to second and nominate this year junior profession officers. We have also one question: is military experience an asset in any of the departments? We have, Amina mentioned very clearly that we have 3 dimensions, and one of them is the politico-military dimension. And this year we might also have an opening in the FSC support section. So their military experience could be an asset. But if I look back of the last rounds of JPOs, I cannot remember that we had JPOs with military experience. So it might be interesting for a couple of opportunities. We had.
Yes, I remember.
You remember someone?
Yes, a GPO that had a brief experience.
So it's not mandatory, but it's obviously an asset if you have experience in this field, and if there's also an opening maybe in the political military dimension. Let us look at other questions that you posted, so please continue. I think we still have 2 to 3 minutes left for the question and answer session. So we are currently looking at the question. So is there a quota by nationality? So no, we don't work with quotas, maybe like in the UN, but we take into consideration diversity aspects. So the gender component is very important, so that we have every time an equal number, at least, of female and male JPOs, and also underrepresented countries. So, for example, in this round, we have a JPO from Andorra. It's the first junior professional officer and the first staff member from Andorra. We have Portugal, who is underrepresented currently, but also Mongolia. So that is for the UB round, the unified budget, where the OSCE is paying. We pay particular attention also to diversity aspects, in particular the representation if a certain participating state is or underrepresented. The last question, we have 2 more questions that I see here. Can we have a few application tips? So that's actually what I mentioned during the presentation. I did not want to focus too much on the application tips because my colleagues developed an excellent and outstanding webinar, how you can prepare yourself, either for competency-based interview questions that will be asked during the so-called Sonro interview, but also for pre-recorded interviews for Sonro, how you can prepare yourself for this. So there are interesting and important resources available. We have one last question. So how many slots do we have available? So obviously I'm not in the position to provide you with a number. I can just tell you that the slots significantly increased in the last years. So I would say between 15 and 20 slots are available in total a year for junior professional officers. And yeah, I think that's the number. If you have other questions, I would recommend you also the talent acquisition newsletter. So that's a very innovating project and newsletter that we send once a month. So I would highly recommend you to subscribe. You have the link there. For this month, the topic was the JPO program. So there were lots of interesting information about the JPO program. We have a careers page where also our JPOs are appearing. For example, the JPO from Andorra, he's there. You will find his profile there along with other staff members from different institutions, field offices, and headquarters. And if you want to have more information, I would invite you to visit jobs.osce.org. And I thank a lot our junior professional officers who were today here with us to share their stories and impressions in order to give you more input for your application and how a potential JPO placement could look like. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hope we were informative enough.
I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much. Thank you and best of luck. Thank you.